Welcome one and all to the second Friday Art Talk. I'm Victor, your host tonight, and I'm so delighted to present to you our guests who will be talking about their work, their stunning work, and mostly sharing a very intimate part about their work, which is how they created, and also how they were impacted by the last 2 years, which we had to go through the pandemic. So this show is, as always, going to be a delightful look at artists in their natural space, sharing amazing work, and with the audience having a chance to ask questions about what may resonate with them or share comments about it. With that being said, we're going to jump into our agenda for the discussion by first thanking our sponsors who are, firstly, it's Flats Art and Design, who jumped in during the pandemic and decided to support this show. We really, really want to share our gratitude for your gesture because it did show that artists are seen and appreciated. And you jumped in at a time of uncertainty, so that makes it even more profound. So thank you so much for that. And alongside with them is Alameda Municipal Power. More information on the panelists tonight is available on FridayArtWalk.com. Hop on there and see our past shows, and you can catch this show within a week after tonight. The audience will be muted during the discussion, but the chat will be running. So if you've got any questions that you want to put down, you can put them down in the chat, and we'll attend to those as we go through the show and make sure that your voice is also heard during this discussion. Finally, in the first section of the announcements, we'd like to let you know that this show is being recorded. So with that, I would like to welcome Tim Walters. I would like to welcome Michael Rushka. I hope I got that right. And Heidi Mortensen to the show to not only share their amazing work, but their lives. And we start off with you, Tim. Tell us a bit about yourself, or where you're from and who you are.
I come from a military family. My dad was in the Air Force. So strictly speaking, I'm not from anywhere exactly. I moved around all the time when I was a kid. The anecdote I usually tell to illustrate it is the first year I spent the entire year in the same school was 8th grade. Don't really have a strong sense of place in my upbringing, but bumped around in a lot of interesting places. And after taking a long time to finish my undergraduate degree, I came out to Oakland to go to Mills College to get my MFA in electronic music, not in photography or visual art. And I've been here ever since. And that's pretty much it. Not much else to say.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Tim. We will dive back into the idea of place and location and also belonging. So thanks for sharing that. I look forward to hearing about your work. All right, that's Tim Walters. And now we move on to Michael Rushka, correct?
Rushka, yes, Rushka, yes.
Gotcha. Welcome, Michael. Same question to you. Tell us a bit about yourself and where you're from.
Originally, I'm from New Jersey. I came out to Los Angeles in 1989, and I moved up to the Bay Area in 2012. So I've been up here in the Bay Area for 10 years now. My day job, I'm working at Aquarium in the Bay. It's a nonprofit aquarium on Pier 39 in San Francisco. And that supports my art and photography habits, along with the other photography gigs that I get on the side.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, Michael. Once again, we'll dive back into what you've shared and see how it influences your artwork. All right. Thanks, Michael. And moving on to you, Heidi. Welcome to the show. And tell us a bit about yourself and where you're from.
Hi, so I was raised and grew up in Honolulu, Hawaii. That's where I went to university and got my BFA in sculpture. Then I moved to the big city of San Francisco about 27 years ago now. So I'm a longtime Bay Arean. And in 2017, I got this amazing studio space in Alameda. And that's where I create my mixed media sculpture.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. Welcome to you three to the show. And we'll get into the artwork now, which is why we're here, excuse me. So to switch up the order a little bit, we'll start with you, Michael.
Yes.
What inspired your artwork? Could you talk more about the inspiration while our technicians pull up your piece?
I'm really attracted to photographing people. I like portraits. Hello? Or are we there? Are we still there?
Yes, we are.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm just attracted to people and photographing them with my camera. I'm sort of attracted to artistic types, you know, people with a good vibe, a positive vibe. Musicians, artists, poets, or just people, you know, that have a creative vibe about them, and I seem to pick up on that. And most of the time I will ask if I can photograph them. A lot of times I'll just photograph in passing and, you know, sort of make eye contact and flash the peace sign. Yeah, that's how I do it. I just go out on the street with my camera and I shoot away. I also like photographing. I like events too, because I see a lot of people there that are like marches and just large events where there's a lot of people that are sort of doing something they like to do. And I like to photograph people where they're like into something that they do in their lives.
Beautiful. Now, I would just like to tap into what you said about if they have a good vibe. Could you, in your own perspective, in your own words, how would you describe a good vibe or a good subject? You know, what draws you to that, you know, besides the artistic element you pointed out? Could you talk more about the vibe? What do you mean by that?
Well, I pick up on things like body language, a lot of the way people express themselves. So I'm on the street a lot, and you'll pick up on body language, facial expressions, a lot of times the way people dress. Sometimes people dress very creatively, or you just have a sense that, you know, they have a presence and they're aware in the world and of who they are, and I pick up on that.
Wow.
It's very intuitive. It's a very intuitive process. You never know when it's going to happen until it happens.
Beautiful. And how do you sit with that? You know, just waiting for that moment. If somebody were a shy character, for example, how would you say that approach, opening up that space where you create that moment, capture that moment? How would you describe that interaction?
I just walk up to somebody and I say, you know, you try to put on you have to be confident in what you're doing. You know, I have to be confident in what I'm doing. And I just I'm honest with the person. I just say, there's something about you. I like the clothes you're wearing. I like the way you look. You have a good vibe. You seem like a happy person. You know, would you mind if I photograph you? And yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thanks so much for sharing, Michael. To Art Push, are we able to pull up a couple of Michael's other images, or is that too much work for right now? We can circle back if it's too much. Really striking work, Michael. I went through your Instagram and it's pretty amazing how you how you have this variety of people like this. I mean, look at that. The capture is really beautiful. And could you speak more about what drew you to this particular image, for example?
Okay. For this, well, this was at the height of COVID. This was like, I believe in May or June of 2020. So we were in the height of shutdown there. And the only time I would leave the house was to go down to the supermarket. In this case, a friend needed to go to Berkeley Bowl, so we drove over to Berkeley Bowl. And I just saw this woman walking down the aisle, and you can see right away, visually, she's very striking. And I always have my camera with me, so I just asked her, I said, you know, you look like really cool. I love your colors, your hair and everything. Would you mind if I photographed you? And she was very happy to do that.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thanks a lot, Michael. I would love to circle back. So I'm going to quickly move on, but I'll let you know why I'm asking these questions. It's because
that's the way, please.
Yeah. So the reason I'm asking is because I read somewhere that people are losing their social skills in simply having conversation, simply being able to connect in a natural way. So it's amazing to see you do that and be able to explain the process, what goes on there. And I love what you said about being confident in what you do and just being upfront and honest. That's really great advice. Thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Okay, we'll circle back to you again, Michael. And if you want to carry on talking about the work, we'll do that. Or if you want to move on to the impact of the pandemic, okay. Thank you, Michael. On to you, Heidi. Welcome to the show. And what inspired the piece in the book?
Which is not that one. There we go. This piece is titled Holding. She is cast resin. The figure is cast resin.
No, you can go on.
Okay. What she's standing on is torched wood, and the finishes on the resin are done with acrylics. This piece came out of some recent personal events in my life. My childhood home where I grew up was destroyed by a fire. And pretty much around the same time, my mom died, and there was a fracturing of what was left of my family at that time. And so with this piece, I was sort of thinking about these losses and dealing with multiple losses that were all in connection to family and home. And with this specific piece, I was really focusing on these ideas of what do we hold on to consciously or unconsciously when we are going through a loss or a trauma. And so on the front where I cast her, I used this clear resin to create this empty space. And the dark matter that you see in there is actual ash that I salvaged from the remnants of the burnt house. And for me, this was sort of about the things that we continue to carry with us, these remnants of these traumatic incidents or loss that we carry within us, even as we move forward. And I think sometimes it's not even, we can't really even do anything about that. They just become part of who we are. And then Jessica, is it possible to see the other photo that I sent you with the back? So the other parts of this where she is she's holding behind her, she's grasping onto this bird that is cast as clear resin, which you can see in the lower part there. And then her other hand is empty and has this deep blue coloration in the palm. And these, for me, were really about the things that we try to hold on to after a loss, or we want to hold on to. And for me, it was about questioning like these memories or these ideas of places or people that we've lost. And, you know, are these constructs, are these real, and are these things that we should let go of? So those were all the sorts of things that were swirling around in my mind as I was creating this piece.
Wow, that is mind-blowing. It's phenomenal. As I'm hearing you speak and looking at the image, it's amazing to see how the story behind it transforms the image. Just the same as when Michael was speaking about the piece just tends to transform into something else. And for me, it gives it more meaning, more emotion, more value per se. Not to say it didn't have value before, but this is just totally stunning. And to see that it's got elements of your home in it, it's just so moving. It's deeply moving. Thank you for sharing such personal and such a heavy subject. I really appreciate your brevity in that, but also the beauty with which you present these events. Could you talk more? I would love to ask about technique, about what you use, but I'll leave that for a later time. What I would like to ask now is, could you talk more about that whole space about experience and time? You know, so after you did the piece, how did it, what was the effect of, you know, creating the piece, embodying the story that you just shared?
Well, I mean, art for me has always been a way that I sort of process things that happen in my life. And I think I'm actually quite a happy person, I think most people would say, but my art tends to be about the things that are difficult in my life. And I think that if people just saw the art, they would think I was a very sad person probably, but it's actually just the way that I think I am able to think through these things that happen in my life, and the way that helps me process them and deal with them in a way that I can move through them. So I think it's helpful for me in that way. And I also feel like I would hope to think that that's what art can also bring to other people, because when they see it, they may not know the actual story, but I would hope that through some emotional resonance that maybe their story, you know, is present in it for them as well in some way.
Beautiful, beautiful. I won't say too much, but I'm seeing a beautiful thread that's running between what Michael said and what you've just said. But I don't want to go into that before Tim's presented. Have we? Yeah.
Nope.
Have we gone through everyone?
Nope.
No, haven't talked about my work yet.
Thank you, because I was sure we hadn't seen Tim's piece, because it struck me also. And this is something I'm really looking forward to hearing about. So thanks once again, Heidi and Michael, for sharing so intimately about your process, and also just being open about your lives. I couldn't say more. You know, sometimes you don't need to add more to beauty, you just have to appreciate it. So I appreciate what you shared. All right, Tim, what inspired the piece? Could you tell us more about it? Firstly, could you share the title? Because I think that's pretty powerful.
The title is Can't Get There From Here. And to be honest, actually, it isn't, I don't think of it as inspired at all. I go out and find things. So I just go out places and I try to keep my eyes open. In fact, probably I would say the main reason I've come to start doing photography on a regular basis, and I'll probably get into the history of how I pivoted from music to photography in the next segment, but is really trying to learn to keep my eyes open and really to, as much to change my own way of looking at things as it is to come up with something. So in this case, this is just where I happened to be, and this is what I saw. It's out at Alameda Point. You may have been out there and seen it yourself. That said, I mean, so I don't necessarily have any more insight into what this is about than anybody else would, but I can tell you what it means to me. It's clearly this contradiction, right? You've got this sort of beautiful looking place that we all know, this iconic place, San Francisco in the background. And we've got this kind of a Superfund site in the foreground, sort of a fenced off barbed wire warning sign, dubious looking puddles of liquid. And the contradiction really struck me. Obviously, there's a million political things you could read into it. We all know that how the Bay Area has changed, certainly since I came out here in 1991. I've got plenty of friends of mine who had to leave, can't afford it anymore, artist friends, could relate to that. But honestly, that's sort of an afterthought to me. It's just about this visual contradiction. And the feeling of being, it does have to do with the feeling though, clearly, of being separated from whatever is going on over there, right? So if this is I remember when San Francisco was supposed to be Shangri-La and Atlantis, and people would talk about it that way, right? You guys probably remember that too. Whatever it is, whoever's from this point of view, you can't get there. It's not, you're excluded from it. Does that make sense?
Oh yes, definitely. And thanks for sharing your take on it. Personally, I think it's a powerful piece that allows people to have their own perspective to it. And for me, what got me was the titling of it, like "Can't Get There From Here," and it's profound. The darkness and the light, just a contrast within the image itself. And of course the boundaries, the borders. So pretty profound. And I love the way you liberate it to say it is whatever you make it to be, so yeah. Powerful image, Michael. Thanks so much for sharing that. We will get back into talking more about, actually, let me jump into that before I jump into the comments. You spoke of moving around a lot in your life, and not being tied down to a place, and yet here you do capture a place, So how do you feel about that aspect of it, that you do capture places powerfully, not just capture them, but in a powerful sense? Would you say that's because you moved around a lot, so you became more aware of different spaces, or is there something else?
Actually, I think it's almost a reaction to that, because when you move around a lot, you don't necessarily get, I won't say superficial necessarily, because depending on where we were and what I was doing, I would have a different relationship, a strong or a weaker relationship to where I was. But it's, it's different. I've kind of made it lately when I do these photographs, I try to go to the most boring places possible, boring in quotes, because as I say, I'm really trying to keep my eyes open, and no place is boring if you look at it correctly. And there's no good light, there's no bad light. There is, it's really true that if you were really able of taking the view, the correct point of view, you could see eternity in a wildflower, just like William Blake says. There's no limits to what you can see wherever you are. And of course, being merely human, we can't really do that as well as we'd like. At least I can't. But it's part of it is learning to do that. So it's interesting because this one is kind of old now in my thinking. It's from last year. It's different in a lot of ways from what I do. It's more dramatic. I don't usually do black and white. That one's black and white because the color was terrible, basically. And so, but more and more, even my more recently is it's less dramatic, more about really focusing on where I am and just trying to see what's there and not worrying about whether it's some kind of grand thing, just trying to see what's there.
Beautiful, beautiful. Paying attention to the moment, being present, which is also a theme that runs in Heidi's work and Michael's work, because Michael is about being present in the moment also, and Heidi's work is about being present in life. It's about paying attention to those feelings and emotions. That's incredible. Thank you all for sharing that. I would like to dive into the comments for a little bit, just to hear what our audience is saying. Sarah and Dave say, Heidi, this is so beautiful and powerful. Yes, that's perfect. I feel your piece on such deep levels. Thank you so much for that comment, guys. David writes, Heidi's piece is one of the most incredible examples of working with your feelings and experiences manifesting into beautiful art that I have ever seen. Thank you, David. That's a beautiful comment. Polly writes, so many layers to it. I presume this is about Heidi's work. Is Tim's piece titled Can't Get There From Here? Yes, it is. Taken in way from Rem's song?
Oh, I think he means, did I title it after the REM song?
REM.
And the answer is no, I do know the REM song, but I'm older than that. It's an old expression. It's actually kind of a joke. It's what happens when you pull over for you're lost, you're typically lost, you pull over for directions, and you ask somebody for directions, say, oh, you can't get there from here, so that's what that's about. And it's just an old expression that I was just kind of riffing on. But yes, REM we're doing a similar thing as well.
Beautiful, thank you. I'll go through the comments. We do have 30 minutes before we have to shut down, 20 minutes to be practical. So we have one more question, but I would love to honor the audience and go through the comments. So Sarah and Dave asked Tim, I was looking through your Instagram images, and I think contrast is a big theme of yours. I love the images that seem to have dark and light, both physically and metaphorically in them. That's another comment from Sarah and Dave. This is one of my favorites in the book. I'm not sure which one she's talking about. Yolanda, which one are you talking about? We'll get back to Yolanda on that one. And we have one from Art Push. I like how the clouds look like a wave of impending doom upon the city, which makes it feel like a fleeting moment in time. I presume that's about Tim's image, and that's from Art Push. And Sarah and Dave write, Michael, your photos capture the life, joy, and rebelliousness of the Bay Area. I love the diversity and individuality that you capture. Beautiful comments. Thank you so much for those comments. And I'm not sure what's going on right now, but I'm going to go through to the quarantine. So, just to be fair, I'm going to start with Heidi this time. So the quarantine was a difficult period for a lot of people, and we'd just like to know how did this period impact you and your work, if at all?
Yes, it impacted my work a lot, but possibly not in the way that it was for a lot of people. I was very lucky in that I didn't get sick, and nobody in my immediate circle, got terribly sick or died or anything like that. So for me, the pandemic was really a time of amazing focus and work. I was really able to concentrate on my art 100% because my work was shut down. So I didn't have work to do for quite a while during that. And so I could do art. And that is something that had been very hard up until that point. You know, we live in the Bay Area, it's very expensive. Obviously, I had a business that I ran in addition to trying to fit my art in for many, many years. And I've been slowly trying to inch closer to doing more art, less business, but that's a hard thing to figure out. And when the pandemic hit and my business was shut down, it was 100% art, 100% of the time. And I think like a lot of people who started reassessing their lives during the pandemic, as you see from the great when people resigning from resignation or whatever they're calling it now. I just kind of like, I couldn't go back to working at my business full time after having that. And so I am making this help. This is kind of just sped up my timeline, and I've now pushed into doing my art full time rather than going back to my business, which is a huge risk, but it's something that I'm doing right now. So,
well, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that's pretty profound. Just like this time made people really reflect on it. And funny enough, your work is about reflection also. So you do live your artwork because it's the same theme of reflection. Thanks for sharing that, Heidi. Is there anything more you'd add to that? Are you happy with your decision? Are you happy where you are?
Yes, I'm amazingly happy. I'm also petrified that wow, I'm going to make it work, but I am amazingly happy with it. And I'm, putting my all into it.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing that people can thrive in the middle of adversity, but in that thriving, you'll be happy and petrified, super scared at the same time. Those two can work together at the same time. Thanks, Heidi. Appreciate it. Moving on to Michael.
Yes.
How did the pandemic impact you and your work?
Yeah, it was quite a challenge. As I said earlier, I live in Alameda and I work in San Francisco. So basically, I did most of my street photography in San Francisco on my walks to work. I'd go to the Ferry Building, walk to the aquarium, either up Market Street or along the Embarcadero to Chinatown, North Beach. And that's where I would make all these encounters with people. And suddenly that was cut off. And I was here in Alameda, and I said, which I've hardly done any photography here except for some things around the Navy base. So I said, okay, I got to work with what I have. I'm here in Alameda. I can't leave. The only place I can go is go to the store or maybe down the Webster Street to buy supplies. So I just took my camera and I just started exploring the immediate area. And it's like Tim said, it doesn't matter where you are. If you're an artist, you can always find something, some kind of a subject matter to work with. So for, I guess, almost a year, I did all my photography in Alameda. I figured everybody had to wear a mask. Before, nobody wore a mask. I'm working with people where you can't see their faces. You can only see their eyes. So, a lot of people during the pandemic, you read a lot into a face, especially artists, visual artists. There's so much information in a person's face, but a lot of that information comes from the eyes. So I don't know where I'm going with that, but I decided to do this. People wearing masks, so I'm going to do a series of people wearing masks. Every day I go to the market to get my food, and I'd say I'm going to find the interesting person walking up and down the aisle and ask them if they want to do a photo for my 6 feet apart mask series. And that's how I took it. That's how I worked through the pandemic with my photography. I just made the best of my location and the subjects that were close by.
Beautiful, Michael. Thank you so much. I wish you hadn't stopped yourself with where you were going with how people hold so much information in their eyes. That was really beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of communication takes place through the eyes. It's very useful, especially on the street, communicating with strangers, people you don't know. You can say a lot. Say, can I approach this person, or did somebody just die in their family? Maybe they just need to be left alone, or they, you can see it in their eyes.
Beautiful.
And the rest of their face. But just the eye, with the rest of their face, it makes it a little harder. So you have to be very tactful when you're doing what I'm doing.
Beautiful. Wow, those were some gems dropped already. We'll sum it up beautifully as I can. I appreciate you both for sharing so intimately about that. And we're gonna move on to Tim before we open it up for comments. We've got 20 minutes left in the show, so we do have a bit of time. But before we do, Tim, it's all on you. How did the pandemic impact you?
It's complicated. I'll try to be as brief as I can. So
no, take your time.
Well, I'll start with the lucky stuff. I never got COVID. Everyone I knew who got COVID recovered pretty well. I didn't miss a day of work. That's all the good stuff. But the bad stuff is that actually COVID has not been the big problem for me, because when the pandemic started, I was actually undergoing cancer treatment. And it actually been sort of, well, first of all, of course, I was doing chemo, so I was immunocompromised. So it was extreme isolation for me at the beginning of the pandemic, but also the cancer thing had kind of been throwing me off a little bit. So, but at that time, I would not have called myself a photographer at all. I was a musician, and I only did photography the way a lot of people did photography, on vacations, whenever. I know I've done it for a long time. I've done it since the 80s. And I did occasionally do creative things with it. If I needed an album cover or something, especially, I would try to come up with ideas. But it was not my main focus. Music was my main focus. And doing things like, I do, under my own name, I do experimental electronic music, kind of noisy, abstract stuff. But I also do sort of pop electronic music. I play bass guitar in a band, which hasn't been able to happen for a while either. I'm in a duo with my partner, which also doesn't have gigs anymore. So that all changed. And then at some point, because I was so isolated with everything, once I could actually at least leave the house, I kind of didn't want to. So I needed something to make me leave the house. So I said, okay, I'm gonna buy a new camera as my cancer present to myself. And I'm going to go out and I'm going to make a thing out of it. I'm just going to see what happens, but I'm not going to, no pressure, but I'm going to try to actually make this my thing for a while, so that I can have an excuse to leave the house and get some exercise. Honestly, almost as simple as that. And it just kind of took over. So that is really what I do now. It's now become a daily practice for me. And the music has kind of slipped, not completely, but I did do a COVID album with some friends, remotely, and we did some things. But yeah, so it's just really change of direction, and one that, for better or worse, I'm still thinking is a good thing. I guess that's my story.
Wow, that's pretty profound. For me, it just adds so much more weight and more layers to the images. I love what you said about giving yourself an excuse to go out. It's so beautifully framed. But then again, you said you allowed it to happen. No pressure. Let's see what happens. I love that diving in, allowing yourself to just go out there and do it. Thanks so much for sharing that. That's the art teacher in me speaking, because students would ask me, how do I start doing an art piece? And there's the answer. Allow yourself and expect the unexpected. Heidi spoke of the same thing about the unexpected. Michael is observing also the world around him, and there are no excuses, whether it be COVID or masks, there's something there. So thank you all for sharing so powerfully on your experiences and just not letting anything stand in your way. I mean, it's heartbreaking for me to think that your family home burnt down, Heidi, but you chose to share remnants of it with the world. In other words, it's not gone. It's now part of a greater picture. It's reaching more people. That is just so touching and moving. And Michael, to inspire us to look at each other again and communicate and say, it's okay to say, I like what you're wearing. It's okay to do that. We live in a world where, it's harder to do, and it's refreshing to hear that it's possible. And Tim, for taking what we would call the mundane and making it beautiful, poetically beautiful, and giving it to us and saying, make of it what you will. That is such a gift. Thank you all for the beautiful gifts you presented tonight. I've learned a lot personally, and I know a lot of my people are going to learn a lot from you. And with that being said, I would like to say the discussion is officially over, but we're free to carry on with questions from the chat or artists talking amongst each other. So yeah, we're open to it. Questions, bring them in. While you think about them, I could jump into announcements. I'll give it 5 seconds. All right, we'll jump into announcements and see if we have any questions. East Bay Artist 2021 book is available at Modern Mouse Gift Shop, Books Inc., and also at the Berkeley Art Museum and Pacific Film Archive. You can find all this information on FridayArtWalk.com, by the way, but I'll give it to you since you're here. Call to make sure they are in stock, because they are really becoming popular, and I'm glad that we have the artists right here today. Creative Art Program and Goals Inc. of the Island City Art Exhibit is on, and it's called The Future is Female at Studio 23 on the 3rd of April, 6 p.m. That's Studio 23 is in Alameda for those who are unfamiliar with it. Once again, this is the Creative Art Program and Girls Inc. came together of the Island City Art Exhibit. It's called The Future is Female. And that's at Studio 23. Alameda Summer Art Fair and Maker Market Sunday, July 3rd. So we've got 15 minutes and we'll take any questions if there are any questions or comments, or just to say hi to one another. So I open up the floor for that.
I've enjoyed
David
very much seeing what you guys are doing. I'll say that.
Thank you so much, Tim. You guys make it what it is, to be honest. It's such a beautiful thing having artists come share so profoundly. You have no idea how impactful that is. So thank you. And David, you have your hand up. Yeah, there you go.
I was noticing Tim's incredible album collection. I was curious as to what kind of music he enjoyed and how that plays into his creating art. Thank you.
Well, a little bit of everything, obviously. I'm actually not one of those people who prefers vinyl. That's the funny part. This is back when I bought most of these records, there were no CDs and there were no downloads. So, but as I say, my practice is in electronic music, but it's my dad is a folk musician. Actually, both my parents are folk musicians. And in fact, they're in the Auto Harp Hall of Fame. So I grew up with old time music and bluegrass and folk music generally in the house all the time. Very much shaped me and very much something I still listen to. I'm very excited. There's so much great music by people here. There's a wonderful community of experimental musicians and improvisational musicians that I don't have time to keep up with just that anymore. I'm not really answering your question very well, but the other thing I'll mention is the other big strand in my musical life is progressive rock, sort of the RIO flavor, if you know what that is, like Henry Cow and bands like that, inspired by 20th century classical music, and which is also something I do a little bit of.
Awesome. Thanks for that. If the artists have any announcements to make on their part, you can hold them until later. But for now, we have a hand up. Thank you, Sarah. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so this is for Heidi. Heidi, how big is the sculpture that's reflected in the photograph and in the book, and how long did it take you?
How big? It's 35 inches high, and the base is 9 by 13, so approximately 3 feet. How long it took me? Oh, I don't think I have a good accounting of that. My process is I model them in clay and the figure, and then I'll make a mold, and then I cast them in resin, and then there's a lot of finishing and putting it together after that, because sometimes I cast her in multiple pieces, like the arm with the bird had to be cast separate from the body and things like that. So then you have to put everything back together and make it look perfect again. So it's a fairly long and labor intensive process. I will say that, but I'm sorry I don't have a better answer for you time wise.
Oh no, I get it. People ask me that question a lot, and it is hard to answer because with different aspects of what I'm doing, and I'm like, I don't know, I guess this amount of time, but I was just wondering because it's so intricate, and it's so beautiful, but it's also hard for me to look at because it's so emotional for me. I have, suffer from depression, and that is literally the best visual description of what my depression feels like. Wow. That I could have ever imagined. I mean, it just, her hole in her chest, that darkness, if I stay in that depressive episode too long, I can just feel that getting bigger and deeper. So it's very powerful to me, and I appreciate it being out there because it's kind of, I can use that as a way to explain to people what it feels like to me, if they can understand it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And that's what I think is so amazing about art, is that you can look at that and your experience brings something to that for you that's completely different than anything that I could have put into it. But I think that's what all of our art is so amazing at, is that it can really give something to someone else, no matter what the intent is that we personally put into it. So thank you, Sarah, for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Sarah. And so that I don't miss you, please raise your virtual hand or raise your physical hand so that we can pick on you. Trust me, this is not power tripping. It's just so that we can visually see you on the screen. Thanks so much, Sarah, for that comment and sharing. Right, we are open for questions. This is your space. Take it away. See how hard it is to talk. Any more questions? Artists, if you have questions for each other or comments also, this is a good time to do that.
Well, you go, Jess, Art Push, do you guys have a question? Or if not, I'll go.
Oh, they're clapping.
Question, I just wanted to thank everybody for participating, and I like all of the work, like for completely different reasons, and I've got a lot from what each one of you said. Actually, there is one question that occurred to me. With Michael, I was wondering if I know you've been photographing people for a really long time, and if you guys get a chance, just so you know, all links to their websites and Instagram and more of their photos are available, more views of their art are available through the website. And I highly recommend going and checking out more of Michael's work, more of Tim's work. And Tim's work, yeah, that is not an actual total representation of what Tim does. I've skimmed through his images too, and a lot of it is like more object oriented and just strange things that stand out. And there's one called Donuts. I think you did that one, Tim, and I love that piece. It's an abandoned building with tire marks around the front of it, but the colors are really vibrant. My question was for Michael. I know you've been photographing people for a really long time, and I was wondering if you noticed a transition in the energy of how people interacted with you from the end of when things were normal to into COVID. And then if are you noticing a transition now as we emerge out of it with people and how they're interacting with you?
Yeah, it is. It's sort of beginning to come full circle. At the beginning of COVID, people didn't know it was going to happen. Were they going to be dead next week, or where's this all leading? All of a sudden I can't. I have to keep this physical distance. I have to keep my face covered. That I think we went through all that, and I thought hopefully we have seen the peak of that, and we've seen little spikes in between. But now, as you know, around the Bay Area, the rules are relaxing a little bit. I notice more and more people on the street, more and more people going back and forth to San Francisco on the ferry. More of the masks are coming off. So I feel like it is slowly coming back to full circle, and people are letting their guard down more. People are more approachable. I can get my camera in closer, which was very tricky during COVID, but you sort of have to communicate that with body language, how I do it anyway.
Your work is phenomenal. I mean, your portraits are really amazing.
Yeah, thank you. But I hope that it sort of gave you a feel for how it, COVID affected and how things went around, and they're coming back again, especially with people.
I love that you documented it. I love that you documented it from before it to the beginning of it, through it until the end of it. I mean, it would make a great book. I mean, honestly, it's really good. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, it just seems a lot of it seems so long ago now, too.
Awesome. This is a question for all the artists. Why do we do this?
It's almost like an OCD kind of thing, but I don't, you channel it into something positive, something creative. That's how I see it. For me.
Why?
Why? Maybe some deep needed, for me personally, to connect with other people, just to create new things. I don't know, it's a never-ending process. You think you're going to take the best picture, the best portrait with the most perfect lighting, but you look at them and you go, oh, I can always do that a little better. There's always new people coming along, new faces. So you just can't end. It just doesn't end.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thanks so much, Michael, for that. Of course, you saw I was playing the devil's advocate, but I just got to thinking, I can't look at San Francisco the same without thinking of Tim's image. You can't get there from here. And for me, here is where I am. I can't get there to the city, to that grand dream, to that utopia, you know what I mean? I can't get there from here, the time we are in now. So thanks so much for that. And I want to link it to Heidi's. It's, if I may get a little personal here, but our house burned when I was 6 years old. Wow. And I still remember the flames and the pictures going, and my mother jumping in, trying to save the vestiges of that. And so for me, ash means a lot, char means a lot. And to see that in the chest and preserved so beautifully really meant a lot to me, because I still don't know how to process some of that, a childhood trauma of seeing those flames. but seeing the beauty of what you created in such a fragile medium also, you know, the juxtaposition of char from fire to this medium that can be burned, that's more fragile and gentle, really did a lot for me. So yeah, thanks so much for that. You know, I've got no words for it, because this discussion has given me so much. I didn't know what to expect, but being shown an image and being told that it's not about the perfect image you're going to capture, it's about the point of view, like you said, Tim. And then Michael just going out there and communicating that this is what I want to do. This is my intention, you know. That's a beautiful, beautiful message. And then Heidi, the way you just captured so much of what we would relate to as pain and turned it into this beautiful manifestation. Enough said. Beautiful. Yeah. I'm gonna pretend I'm reading from the chat because my eyes are getting watery. So I'll say, panelists, if you have any art-related announcements, please feel free to share them now.
Yeah, I have a couple announcements. Friend of mine, an artist in San Francisco, is having an ongoing exhibition at Chinatown Made. It's at 626 Grand Street in Chinatown. And it's upstairs. It's a little boutique, a little art gallery space up there. It's very, very cool spot. She has some origami works that she's done and some hand painted ink on silk paintings that she's done. And that'll be going through May.
Okay. Thanks so much, Michael. I've put in a bit of those details with Michael's name misspelled, 626 Chinatown in San Francisco, and it's ongoing exhibition until the 6th of May, correct?
Through May, yes, through May.
Oh, through May, okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, sorry for misspelling your name in the chat. Tim, you had your hand up.
Yeah, on April 1st, April Fool's Day, my partner, Polly Springhorn, is on the chat, and our duo called Usufruct will be virtually performing at the Wonder Valley Experimental Music Festival. And in this case, it's my first ever video as well. So if you want to know how to do this, the full package. So there'll be music and the video, which I think came out okay. It's not, we usually do it live. This one's not going to be live. It's actually a little piece of its own, a video piece that we did. And that, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, there's, I'll get you a link somehow. It's maybe Polly can do it. Peter, I'm on the iPad, so.
All right, thanks. So ArtPush actually says send us the info, and this also goes to you, Michael and Heidi. If you've got stuff that you want to share, you can send it to ArtPush or Jessica and Wes, and they'll put it up on the website. So feel free to send through that information so that we can share that with the rest of the people out there. All right, so Heidi, any stuff happening in your world?
I don't have any specific announcements or dates right now. I'm finishing up a couple of series and looking for a place to do an installation piece, but no details yet.
All right, awesome. I would love it if we would keep in touch and not just make it a second Friday thing where we wrap up the energy. It would be really lovely to see some of this work in person and just hear where the art is showing. So feel free to reach out to ArtPush if you have information about a show you have. We could always announce it here at future shows, so don't be strangers. As you saw tonight, it's a great world of uncertainty where people just jump in with faith and not knowing what the outcome will be. And as we saw tonight, it's beautiful, it's powerful, it's inspirational. So your support does go a long way in showing the world that yes, it's possible. Even through the hardest times, it's possible to create beauty that's inspiring. So thank you. Finally, I would like to say join us for the second Friday for April's Art Talk. It will happen at the same time, same place. If you ever get lost, the website is fridayartwalk.com. That's where you'll find past shows and the upcoming show also. So with that being said, I would like to say thank you so much to Tim, to Michael, and to Heidi for such a
You're welcome.
moving and powerful discussion. It's such an honor having you here, and we really, really appreciate you for sharing so openly and freely.
Thank you very much for hosting, Victor. Really appreciate it.
My
Thank you, Victor.
Thank you. Thank you very much.